I would be curious, say double-digit favorites on Thursday Night Football in general, because I do wonder how much of this is based upon, say, the Lions being bad for so long. How often were they double-digit dogs? Because they probably weren't covering a lot of those games, and so that might have a lot to do with why this is such a lopsided trend. And also, too, the Cowboys in many of these seasons over the past 30 years have been really, really good, facing really bad opponents like the Washington football team and other programs like that, I suppose. So, in that respect, it may be a little bit more contextual. But I do think if there is a little bit of truth in all of this, it's the fact that we do believe that this Cowboys offense is unbelievable. And if there are places to bet, certainly the public's looking at CeeDee Lamb a good bit. He's 8-1 to score the first touchdown. It's one of the more bet on tickets, one of the more bet on props per BetMGM. And CeeDee Lamb to score an anytime touchdown is at minus 140 and over 90.5 receiving yards, 90.5 receiving yards at minus 130. Kate, do any of those strike your fancy?
Yeah. I mean, I've already bet his over receiving yards. Nothing's an easy win in sports betting, but I feel
Mm-hmm.
very strongly about that one. Commanders giving up most receiving yards and receiving touchdowns to opposing wide receivers, second most yards per reception. Lamb has just flown over this number in 4 of his last 5 games, finished with over 100 yards in each of those games. I mean, the only time he did not surpass this was, I think it was last week against the Panthers. Is that when they played the Panthers?
That's right. That's
Um,
right. Yeah,
so
way
yeah,
under.
I think that this is a good bet on CeeDee Lamb. I would also take his his longest reception to go over 27 and a half yards. Washington's defense really, really bad. They've allowed a league high 20 passing plays of 30 yards or more this season. So giving up huge yardage plays, CeeDee Lamb's going to be the player that Dak is looking to the most. So also
Mm-hmm.
Lamb's performed really well as of late. He has just over 1,000
Yes.
yards on the season, and 655 of those, so well over half, have come since week 7. So just in the
Mm-hmm.
past 3-4 weeks, he's started to play extremely well. I think I see him having a big game tonight. So yeah, any sort of CD props you want to take, I would just look to the over on those.
Let's go to the other side of the ball, though, because we know about the Cowboys' vaunted defense. We know that Sam Howell has also taken a lot of sacks. Now, some folks have argued, well, he's gotten better at that. Well, it didn't look that great at Sunday against the Giants of all teams. And I would also argue, too, that first off, strength of competition matters a great deal in terms of how often you're taking sacks. But also, it's not this linear thing where you go, okay, well, Howell didn't have that many sacks over the last couple of games, therefore he's fixed the problem. Well, he may not have fixed the problem. Maybe it's something where the problem is not as severe over the course of time, but you can't look at a 2 to 3 game sample size and go, well, it's good, everything's fine, offensive line is better, he's not hanging on to the ball too long, et cetera, et cetera. No, I wouldn't go that far. I think this is still an issue here. And so in terms of the other side of the ball here, Kate, are there, say, Sam Howell props that you're looking into? For instance, the public thinks that under 252 and a half passing yards at minus 115 is a really good play. Or Sam Howell under 24 and a half completions at even money. That might also be a really good play. Anything stand out there, or maybe something defensively for the Cowboys?
I would say maybe under his passing touchdowns is pretty heavily juiced at minus 175. I wouldn't take that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Passing completions, 24 and a half. I would look at the under there, just knowing that he's going to have to get the ball out a lot quicker than maybe he's used to or did against the
Sure.
Giants last week. Like when you have Micah Parsons coming at you every snap, you're going to have to hurry things up a little bit. And so that might cause him to, not be able to hit his targets quite as accurate as he has. 24 and a half for Howell, I feel like that is not necessarily high, but a number that is you could play the under on that, just knowing how dominant Dallas's defense has been, especially Howell being in a road environment. Like Cowboys at home on Thanksgiving, that crowd is going to be insane. So passing completions, I would play the under 24 and a half for Howell.
Looks like that Geno Smith is expected to play in this one. Safe to say he won't be 100%, but absolutely, if the Seahawks have any chance of winning this football game, much less covering a rather large spread, then certainly Geno Smith needs to be out there. That is safe to say. At the same time, 49ers are on the road as 7-point favorites with a total of 43.5. What stands out to you here, Kate?
What stands out to me is that the Niners have just kind of dominated the Seahawks lately. Beat them 3 times last year, including the wild card. They won by combined 46 points in those games. So this has not been an easy matchup for Seattle. And with the 49ers kind of getting back on track after that 3-game skid, Brock Purdy looked so good last weekend. I just don't see a world in which this game is all that close. So I have not bet this, but I'm leaning towards the 49ers. The only thing that would really concern me a little with the Seahawks is they have a very good home field advantage. That place is going to be loud, and especially on Thanksgiving in a night game atmosphere, like that's going to be a very fun place to be tonight. That maybe the home environment helps Seattle a little bit. Otherwise, all numbers, all analytics, all stats pointing to the 49ers for me.
In terms of what Purdy has been asked to do, definitely he's been playing better than Jimmy Garoppolo ever did in that system. Purdy has certainly exceeded expectations, and there's a reason why this franchise, who I think we all respect, has put Purdy as their starting quarterback. If they didn't feel like that he was that valuable, or they needed to hedge the bet a certain way, I don't think they would have gotten rid of Trey Lance. And I think, it would have been more than just Sam Darnold as the backup. I think they would have done even more things. But I think this idea that the 49ers believe in him, they put him in positions to succeed, and that we've been constantly wrestling with this notion of if he can be an MVP, all of those factors coming together lead me to believe that there is value in the MVP market, and definitely he can play really, really well against the Seahawks defense. Who do you feel like is the likeliest to go over his receiving props, whether it's yards, receptions, anything like that?
Well, after what Brandon Ayuk did last week, I think he had 5 for 156. Kittle has had a lot of big plays in recent weeks. The guy that I'm looking at is Deebo Samuel. And I think it's because the Seahawks understand, maybe better than most, just because it's a divisional game, that they're going to try and get after the quarterback, and the ball's going to have to come out quick. One thing that I think that the Seahawks could do with a better defensive line this year is attack a relatively weak offensive line right now. Aaron Banks, the left guard, is going to be out probably for this game. Spencer Burford's been a limited participant all week at the other guard position. So you're down a couple of offensive linemen on an offensive line that was already maybe the most compromised group on this team. So for me, that means Brock Purdy's got to get the ball out quick. And who's the guy that gets the ball outside of his running back? It's Deebo Samuel. So when number 19 is near the line of scrimmage, I think he's a guy that's going to be getting active after the catch. And for me, if I'm looking at any of those 4 guys, I guess the 3 receivers, including Kittle, Deebo Samuel's the one I got my eyes on.